A great afternoon to all of you. Ahoy, liebe Blitz. I'm really happy to welcome you all to this United Nations Food Systems Dialogue. I am Heike Zeller. I'm a consultant on regional marketing strategies, and today I have the honor and the pleasure to be a moderator for this session. It's a really interesting format. Maybe you made it familiar with yourself with the format. It's really an intense discussion in expert groups. All people here, they're really handpicked and they're really selected to have different perspectives, just Caroline said before, different perspectives on the topic, on regenerative agriculture in its whole, and environmental issues as well. So we have people from NGOs, we have people from academia, from policy governance, from farming, practical people. So we hope that we really bring different perspectives together. And maybe, as you have seen in the mails Caroline sent to you, all the contributions we make today, they will be handed back to the UN, and there in the summit in autumn, they will be put in there, the inputs, and brought all together. So we should really work hard on and be specific and really outcome focused. That's what we ask you today, and I think you all read it already in your emails. I have now the overview on today's event. Welcome by me. That's already happened. I will give you a short introduction on the whole United Nations Food System Summit. That was the missing S beforehand. And so I will give you a short note on that. And after me speaking, then Janis Potočnik, he's the chair of FFA 2021 and also the chairman of the Rice Foundation, former commissioner on environment. He will give us some thoughts by him on these issues we will discuss today. And as he told me, there might be some provocative arguments in it. So let's have a look. Let's hear what he will have to tell us later on. After this discussion or this speech, we will go into the discussions, into the breakout groups. You already received in which breakout group you're in. I will tell you about it later. We will discuss in the groups, and there we will have the facilitator, rapporteur, I will tell you later, and then we will come all back to the plenary session to discuss the different outcomes of the different groups there. And in the end, we have a short note by Emil Freisen and Janis Potočnik in the end, because he's the curator of this whole event. And yeah, and then we will hopefully have a nice afternoon or evening afterwards. What the United Food Systems Summit all about? So we have different tracks. They really would like people draw attention to them and have objectives they would like to target. It's first ensuring safe and nutritious food for all, quite obvious. Shifting to sustainable consumption patterns, so it's all about sustainability. Then the third track here marked in red, because it's the one our dialogue is in as well, boosting nature positive food production. So that's the nature positive aspect of it, and we are in this track and contribute to this track with our outcomes. The fourth one is advancing equitable livelihoods of people involved in food systems. And the fifth, building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stresses. So these are the 5 objectives the UN pointed out to be targeted in these events, in the preface of the summit itself, in the summit, and also about the publications and all the disseminations made afterwards. And why this all? They would like to contribute to transforming the ways in which people's food is produced and consumed, of course. So we would like to have transformation here. I think many people agree, maybe all people agree, from some standpoints, that we have to transform parts or the whole system. We produce food, we do agriculture, and we produce food. And so, of course, there are a lot of thoughts about it, a lot of opinions about it, how this should be transformed. And this is the contribution the UN tries to do with it. Help food systems become more sustainable and equitable? Yes, That's, I think, in everyone's favor to do so, because everybody is a human here. Advanced progress in all 17 sustainability development goals, the SDGs, of course, they always, like, I don't know, maybe the last 5 years or so, they built the framework to many of the events now hold online, or again, then after the pandemic in person, on focusing these outcomes should be brought to the world. As I mentioned before, and as you all read already in your emails, we have these special format with the breakout groups, with the expert groups, focusing on different aspects of regenerative agriculture and its mainstreaming. And in all these UN Food Systems Summit dialogues, they have thought about how we could do that in a good way. And so FFA, as also the partner, putting this into real, FFA decided to take over the roles the UN brought to the table, but also add another one. So you have the convener who organizes a dialogue, that's FFA and Nestlé as the partners here. Then we have the curator. This is Janis Potočnik in our case. He serves as a chairman, and he also secures neutrality. That's a very interesting and very important point, because all perspectives should be brought to the table, no matter who is organizing, no matter who maybe have a say more or less, bigger or smaller institutions, whatever. So that's really a big important point to be made, and please also keep in mind for the discussions later on. Everybody should be heard in an equal way. Then we have the facilitators of the different breakout groups, of course, and then that's what I said, FFA added the role of the rapporteur, somebody who serves together with the facilitator to get the best outcomes of the sessions. So the rapporteur is kind of writing down the notes, taking the protocol, and maybe sometimes summarizing or really pushing the people to the point in teamwork with the facilitator to really have something to write down on specific topics afterwards to be tackled. Yeah, and then of course, the final feedback form, which is made after the whole today's event and will be handed back to Caroline, made by the facilitators and rapporteur. Caroline, again, will summarize everything, will put everything together and will hand it back to the UN. And so this process ensures that the outcomes of today will be heard also in the bigger UN context. But now I would like to hand over to Janis Potočnik, because he has prepared a speech for us. And now I will stop sharing my screen and ask Janis to... Where's my mouse? Not working. So we're back here with all people. Janis, are you ready to take over the floor for your speech, please?
Sure. Thank you, Heike. And good day to everybody. I will, of course, try to keep the promise given to you, Heike. Dear friends, welcome to the UNFSS Independent Dialogue focusing on mainstreaming regenerative agriculture also from my side. The purpose of this dialogue is in the first place to stimulate new ideas and thinking about how we could make regenerative agriculture part of the mainstream activities in the food and land system area and accelerate adoption through 2030. This makes today's UNFSS Independent Dialogue one of the most interesting, and I believe that our deliberations today will make a real contribution to the outcomes of Action Track 3, but actually to all 5 tracks if you look carefully, and thus also contribute to the success of the overall UNFSS process. This is entirely within the mission of the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, which is focused on building a more resilient and sustainable food and agricultural system. We are, of course, delighted to be working in partnership with Nestlé and to have secured today the participation of so many experts, stakeholders who can offer your unique perspective and experience on this topic. My role being curator of today's event is setting the scene, sharing enough provocative messages to trigger a lively, but of course also constructive debate. Let me begin by putting our discussion in a broader context. It all starts with understanding that for the first time in human history, we face the emergence of a single, tightly coupled human socio-ecological system of planetary scope. So we are more interconnected and interdependent than ever, and our individual and also collective responsibility for joint future has enormously increased. According to a recent Dasgupta review, our unsustainable engagement with nature can be traced to institutional failure and the failure of contemporary economics to acknowledge that we are embedded with nature and not external to it. So, for the beginning, it would be good to acknowledge that we humans are part of nature and to start behaving accordingly. Why it is so important to focus on natural resource management? Natural resources are the bridge connecting drivers and pressures to the impacts and consequences. Natural resources are the basis for the whole economy and life, and at the same time, their use is the cause of all environmental impacts that are also threatening our health. In short, they connect everything. According to the International Resource Panel, which I'm co-chairing, extraction and processing of natural resource materials, including metals, minerals, fossil fuels, and biomass, causes around 90% of land-related biodiversity loss and water stress, 50% of global climate change, as well as 1/3 of global air pollution. The global material demand is projected to double by 2060 if current trends would continue. In no way we can decarbonize all the production, make our economies and societies sustainable without massive trade-offs. Therefore, the only realistic chance for reaching our 2030 and 2050 targets is to deploy all measures possible to address this likely potential increase. While we strive to improve our well-being, we must reduce the need for additional virgin natural resources as much as we can. We must decouple well-being and economic growth from natural resource use and environmental impacts, which is important for all, but urgent for high-income countries. There are many reasons why this is not yet the case, but one big reason is the perversive notion that the growth in well-being is connected to the growth in production and consumption measured by GDP. And GDP could be probably best explained by saying that one will not reach the goal by walking faster if walking in the wrong direction. The idea of creating an economy that serves people with a function but produces less in quantity is still taboo in many boardrooms as well as at ministries. Therefore, talking about innovation in climate as well as industrial communities tends to focus on technological innovation and production rather than innovation in business models and systems, where, by the way, also regenerative agriculture concept belongs. We should also not underestimate the importance of the market economy. It is likely here to stay, and markets are a core mechanism for the interaction among us economic actors. We should stop giving producers the signals that destroying natural capital is free of charge. And we should also stop confusing consumers by asking them to behave responsibly, but requesting them to pay more if they do so. Also when it comes to healthier and more environmentally friendly produced food. I would be first claiming that nature has intrinsic value. We must respect and also protect. But until, as nicely put it by Professor Stiglitz, invisible hand will often be invisible since it is often not there. This is in the very words of the famous Finnish writer Arto Pasilina, a charming mass suicide orchestrated by the invisible hand of markets. What would this mean in policy terms? Redefining consumption from owing to using. Redefining production from mass sales to providing efficient functionalities. redefining core economic incentives, such as taxation and subsidies. It would also mean making integrated well-being, including natural capital accounting, the objective across all policies. Measuring sustainability with a life cycle perspective, and looking at innovation in categories of economic ecosystems that provide societal functions rather than in categories of production sectors. Acknowledging the value of natural capital would almost inevitably, at least in short term, lead to some price increases and worsen the already unviable social situation, unacceptable for many already today living on the edge. This leads to the conclusion that environmental and social transformation are closely interlinked, and without simultaneously addressing all the SDG spectrum and integrating into our joint efforts also the improvement of the well-being in lower income countries, we have a very limited chance to succeed. So it will be difficult to make food affordable if we do not give more attention to income and wealth distribution. And it will be difficult to find a solution for the sustainability aspect without a full cost approach that also includes the costs of the rapid depletion of the natural capital. And we need both without any doubt. Future economic development and well-being depends on understanding and accepting the fact that we must respect the planetary boundaries and treat natural capital in a responsible way. There is no need to explain how critical this is also in the context of the food and land system transformation. Food system and land management remain at the core of so much of what we are trying to achieve. It is there where the nexus of food, biodiversity, climate, and pollution health so often come together. The task ahead of us is complex and demanding, but by joining forces, by listening to each other, and by establishing a necessary trust, all is possible. The only way to deliver is if we all converge and work on the same goal, not just asking others to do it, but for each of us to be part of it. This leads me to the importance of regenerative agriculture. As a concept, it is not starting from a point of do no harm, but is more focused on how to restore and enhance capacity. It has the potential to positively impact the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of sustainable agriculture. Regenerative agriculture is more than just farming practices. It is about the entire food value chain. If only the farmers adopt change practices, but the legislators, buyers, and processors do not recognize the need for change, it will fail, just like we have experienced it in the past with some other attempts to implement widely nature-friendly agricultural system. Although there is an increasing focus on regenerative agriculture, we should be clear that many of the farm practices widely considered to contribute to a regenerative approach to farming are neither new nor they are rocket science. What is potentially different is the evolving knowledge, particularly at the farm level, and how to harness the benefits of these practices together with technology to maximize the impact. Today, no doubt, we will have the opportunity to discuss among ourselves what we regard the best practices to be. But there is an emerging consensus that they involve crop diversification, planting cover crops, minimum or no tillage plugging, reduced or no use of chemical inputs, and the integration of livestock. There are, of course, variations on these, as there should be, as knowledge emerges, especially from the farmers themselves. But hopefully, we can agree this is a reasonable starting point. Only under the term regenerative agriculture, only if under the term regenerative agriculture, we will understand the same substance and ambition, we can make the concept effective and avoid the potential danger of greenwashing. From the effective collective application of these practices flows several benefits, including boosting above and below ground biodiversity, restoring and enhancing soil life, which is essential for plant nutrients. Second, increasing soil or organic matter, one of the most important factors in soil fertility. Also improving the retention of water and thus reducing the need for irrigation, enabling crops to become more tolerant to extreme weather events in a changing climate. Third, improving soil structure, leaving it less exposed to wind erosion whilst creating more pores, which can help plant root systems. And finally, of course, sequestrating carbon in the soil, making it another potentially useful tool in agriculture's fight to mitigate climate change. An important part of the solutions we will discuss today is linked to the governance. I know from my own experience that the difficult reality for policymakers responsible for the environment is that they have the responsibility for solving the problems, while the tools for solving them are mostly not in their hands. They depend on effective solutions coming from other policy-related colleagues, as well as from private sector players. The success of the environmental policy depends to a large extent on the understanding and also willingness of the colleagues to listen and associate their voices with environmental policy, in particular colleagues with responsibilities for areas with high environmental impacts, climate change, biodiversity, health, and pollution. And agriculture belongs among areas with high environmental impacts. On the other hand, their understanding and willingness also depend on environmental policymakers to be well organized, cooperative, thoughtful, and ready to provide sincere help in transitions, which are many times, for those who have to do it, far from easy. And we cannot forget the importance of the financial aspect either. Good policymaking is always a two-way street. Only by bringing at the table together those in charge of solving the problems with those responsible for creating the pressures and in need for change, we can develop effective joint vision, joint targets, joint policy pathways, and joint responsibility for the success of the needed transition. And we have today all needed at our table. Dear friends, the science shows very clearly that the greatest risks for food security come from the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. Combined, the fate of farmers and food security are to a large extent dependent on our relation to environment. There is a high level of agreement that the transition to a more sustainable society and economy is unavoidable, but ultimately it will be about the speed and scale of that transition. It will be about addressing the drivers and pressures that cause the challenges we are facing, and about providing further systemic perspective to guide decision making. We should start with meeting human needs rather than from the overuse and underutilization of natural resources, chasing higher production growth rates and the logic of putting more products on the market, regardless of the price we are collectively paying. We are in a race against time. To remain credible, countries with the highest consumption footprint and trans-Pacific planetary boundaries must lead by example. All of this makes the questions if and how to mainstream regenerative agriculture and accelerate its adoption so important. In our debate, we will no doubt focus on what we mean by regenerative agriculture and how to account for the benefits it can deliver. But I also look forward to hearing the discussion on how we support growers making the transition and de-risk it. We need to hear how both public and private sector stakeholders can play a role in working together. I also hope we will explore how consumers and citizens can be made more aware of regenerative agriculture and bring their influence to help accelerate its adoption. I hope you will enjoy our interactions today. In your recommendations, be bold, using a necessary system change perspective, but be also specific and action-orientated. This will ensure a successful outcome, and we need it. Thank you for joining our independent dialogue devoted to mainstreaming regenerative agriculture, and I hope you will enjoy the session. Back to you, Heike.
Thank you very much, Janez. I think we have to imagine now a virtual applause on your speech. I hope I didn't say too much, saying that there were some provocative points in it. And I just wrote down some points that catched my attention specifically. For example, that you linked the topic of regenerative agriculture to the, let's say, share economy, about not owning but using things. And I mean, this also goes to the core of farmers, because it's the tender spot to talk about ownership, to talk about these things. And I think this is some good points to be discussed in here. Also about the full cost approach, that reminded me on our discussions we had last year in Berlin and Brussels about the true cost accounting and everything. So yeah, I think these are also some streams in the discussion, and they pop up, of course, in every topic specifically we bring up. So, but what I saw now in the round is that Paulo Di Castro is with us as well. He's from Italy. He is the former Minister of Agriculture in Italy and also member of the European Parliament. And I thought at some points in Janez's speech, maybe he would like to address something to Janez. Maybe you could add something to our discussion here, Paulo.
Thank you very much. I very much like to say welcome to all the friends that I see in this little picture of Zoom, starting from my colleagues in Comagri. But first of all, I would like to thank Janez Potočnik, because I released a clear message. The problem is there. Everybody realizes that the challenges we have is incredibly important and incredibly difficult. But let me start in my 5 minutes just to make some underline. First of all, I would like to start what you, Ike, said right now. We have to make this transition with farmers, not against farmers. This is clear to me. It's very clear, because we have to use and to have a strong alliance with the farmers, because farmers is the key. But at the same time, as Janez said before, we have to take care about the farm income, because if the farm closes, of course, we lose our ally. We have no chance to get any result. But anyway, let me say that the integration of agricultural and environmental policy has intensified since the late 1980 in the coming years. The farm to fork strategy and the biodiversity strategy, which come from the Green Deal, European Green Deal, will accelerate this process and support the ambition of zero emission Europe. That will be, of course, the goal that we have in mind. The effort must be made taking into the account the specific characteristic of different European agriculture and contextualized with respect to the needs and emergency of the different territories in Europe. To do this, as Janez said, the member state will have to do important work to calibrate the types of intervention and measure their effects on the environment and society. Of course, moreover, all this must be accompanied by a prospect of competitiveness of our agricultural sector, which become a guarantee for our consumers. If our farmers are not competitive, well, what we can do is just export the problem to other countries, So I would like also to emphasize that this European effort must be supported by an international dialogue like today, which must aim for reciprocity in environmental, social, and health rules. If this objective is not pursued, there is a risk what I said before, and exporting negative externality and making the European agricultural sector less competitive. And we don't want to close our farmers. We want to use our farmers' capability to go in the direction of fighting climate change, take care about the soil fertility, try to give a solution to the environmental problems that we have to face. And come clear, in my mind, one aspect, innovation. No question about, we need more and more innovations. Just to give you an example, in Farm to Fork, we decided to put a big goal to reduce pesticide at 50% in the next decades. Well, that's good. Everybody said that's a nice idea. But the problem is how our farmer can combat the disease if they don't have an alternative. So it will be very clear that we need to give to our farmers alternative. An alternative could be genetic, for example, great. But we need to increase the effort of the European Union to the innovation in genetic. I'm not talking about GMO, I'm talking about the new breeding techniques, you know, technologies who don't move gene from one species to another. This is innovation. I mean, if we can combat the disease by genetic instead by chemistry, this can be a solution. But of course, we need time to implement this new technology and to give a result, concrete result. Of course, we have a lot of news coming from the, the smart farming, precision farming, all the new technology that can reduce a lot of chemistry in agriculture by mechanical and be concentrated in the part of the soil that they need. But all these alternatives should be studied and should be implemented to give a concrete alternative to our farmers. So no question about the goals we need to do. This is the big challenge for all. We just make an important step in the CAP reform that we already have concluded in the last days. Well, somebody said it's not enough. Somebody said it's just greenwashing. I said it is an important step ahead. And I'm sure some colleagues will say so later. Because when we introduce the eco scheme, in the eco scheme, we are introducing exactly what Yannis said before. Rotation, increasing fertilizer, increase the organic farming, increase all the good practices that can improve the fighting against climate change. And this will take part about 25% of the total direct payment. I mean, this is an important engagement. Of course, it's not enough probably, but it's an important step. And at the same time, I think we introduce other important aspects, which is not the case to mention today, but social dimension is another very important step because we don't want unfair competition between farmers in Europe. So the question is clear. Yeah, no, I'm finished. Just to say, the question is clear. The objective is clear. But when we want to implement this, that becomes much more complicated. And the things we have to keep in mind and our farmers, how we can help our farmers to go in the transition. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry if I was late.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Paolo. And I think, yeah, that's really an emphasis on the farmers. And I think many people here would agree that because without the farmers, we can't do anything about what we discussed today. And also Yannis mentioned beforehand that we always need the different stakeholders to be brought together. And also the social dimensions you mentioned, Paolo, I think this is what we're doing here right now. Of course, on a kind of a theoretical base, but still we try and we do our best to then put this into governance and then to laws and everything. I don't have to tell you, you know it all about yourself. Okay, so I will show you now the groups you will be linked to very soon. So here you can see an overview on the different breakout sessions we provided. And everybody of you should have had an email already saying to which group they will be brought to. And you will then, when we start the groups, you will be brought there also automatically. You don't have to pick anything, just wait and you will be in your breakout room as soon as you can see. And these are the facilitators and rapporteur in your groups, and so they will welcome you over there. And if anything happens, you fall out of the session or anything, then come back to Caroline via email, or just bring yourself back to the whole session, to the plenary session, and then the colleagues will help you out. We have also the host from FFA for each group, so we have really technical support as well. So nobody should be missed there. And now I wish to all of you a very productive and nice session. It's 70 minutes now of really in-depth discussions, and please speak up, all of you, put on your cameras, but now go over to the breakout rooms, enjoy the discussion. Thank you and see you later in the plenary session.